We are continuing the series that we're calling Ordinary People Who Do Extraordinary Things. And I think dads fall into the category of people who are just ordinary guys, but do extraordinary things. And I will say most of us guys, when we do what seems ordinary for our wives to do, we somehow feel like that's extraordinary, you know. If your wife generally washes the dishes, and if you're anything like me, and I wash the dishes occasionally, and I have to make sure I say very occasionally, probably, since Angie's in here. Don't want to, but it's like if I wash the dishes, I feel like, man, I just did something. I feel like I got a cape on my back or something. And so if I see someone coming in to get in the cabinet to get something, say, is that a new glass, or you have one you've already been using, or what? You know, I just did the dishes, and it's like I want credit, and then I want everybody to pay attention, be careful. You know, let's make this last a while, and so us guys, we have a tendency to kind of want a lot of brownie points for what is really just ordinary. But I will say this: most guys, really, if you're a good dad, you do extraordinary things, and those extraordinary things make a huge, huge difference in your family. And you can be ordinary. You can just go through the motions and do as little as you can, get by. But I think that most dads that I know here, you guys fall into this extraordinary category. And so question is, what cape do you wear? What cape do you wear? And I know, if you ever have, fun, your kid may have some superhero that they like, especially. And they, and so you may play that out sometimes. And if you want to become a YouTuber and make millions of dollars, then you just, act like all you do in life is have a cape on, run around and play Superman with your kids. I had to. This is a couple years ago. Ginger and somebody, who is it? Ginger and on YouTube. Ginger and who is it, Skylar? Carl and Ginger are on YouTube, and they are a family. Now, if you watch their videos, they're always doing experiments that almost blow their house up. And it's amazing. It's like the whole family's in this together, and they're just doing this explosive thing. Well, Hunter had kind of started watching this and enjoying it, and it's it's kind of cool. But he somehow had it in his head whenever that family woke up in the morning. The first thing they did was explode pancakes or something, and then they would, all day long, they just did one massive kind of crazy event all day long. And so I remember one morning I was, just he and I were in the kitchen area, and he goes, "This family's boring." I said, "Whoa, wait just a minute. What are you saying here? He said, "Well, Carl and Ginger," and I'm going like, "Oh boy. We got to fix this problem right here, because I'm not blowing volcanoes and everything else up all around the house just so I can be a YouTuber, And so I said, I'll tell you what that statement just told me is I need to manage how many episodes of Carl and Ginger that you see, and explain to you a little bit about what real life is. So we can't live up to that kind of a thing as dads. That's not what our calling is. But at the same time, being a good dad does call for a lot of things from us, and that's something to talk about. And there's times I have talked about it, and times I would. But really, what I want to talk about is more about who you are, because truthfully, in the end of the day, as much as it does matter, pardon me, a Diet Coke, it does matter that. You throw ball with your sons, you do certain activities and things like that your children like, your boy, your girl, whichever. Spend time with them in those ways. It's very, very important. At the end of the day, even though I think those things matter greatly, what really matters is who you are. Because who you are is what you end up, is what they end up seeing and gaining from, and either embracing or rejecting. And so it's very, very important. I want to talk to you about the fact that I think in today's world, we have a little bit of an overemphasis on on heroes, or leave it a misunderstanding of it. And so sometimes we think we put people in hero status that are really not heroes. They may be well known or something else, but they're not necessarily heroes. And it's like the word genius. You'll just hear that word kind of overused. Oh, that was genius, or you're a genius, or well, there are only so many geniuses around. I think there are a couple in this church here, and I can't talk to him. Greg, I can't talk to you. Greg Allen, he's like one of those brains that's like just, so it's like, I'm like, after about 5 minutes with Greg, you got to talk like a normal person here. You're way past me. No, he's just got one of those super high-powered brains. There are people, oh, thank you, man. Do I sound like I need it, or? Okay, thank you. He's like, hey, sometimes it's Father's Day, people just being nice to you. Sometimes it's like a big hint. You need to take this so you don't sound so rough. Hang on, I'm going to drink some so I don't sound so bad, okay? Thank you, Nate. You're a good kid. I don't know who put you up to that, but anyway, you did it out of your own goodwill, didn't you? So I need to help that guy. I hope that helps. I hope it sounds better. If not, in an hour you won't notice. Remember, it's going to be a long sermon. So we live in a world that talks a lot about, use these terms kind of loosely. Oh, you're a hero. He's a hero. Oh, you're an icon. Really? There's only so many icons, so many geniuses, so many heroes. I went into this. I was in this bank and I saw this thing said mortgage guru. I was thinking, man, must be someone that really knows a lot about. And I had some questions about some different kinds of mortgages that I'd read about, and so I thought, man, this is a guy to go talk to. And so I walked in and I said, "Are you the mortgage guru?" He goes, "Oh," well, I mean, I have that on that's my card. And you know what? I took a little closer look, and you know who it was? It was a guy that I had rented a car from down at Budget Rental about 6 months earlier. Now, I don't know how he went from being a budget rental car salesman to some mortgage guru, but he looked young enough. He probably hadn't spent 10, 15 years being a guru. And so, we just, people call themselves stuff. I'm like, and so I kind of, assessed the situation going, I don't even think I'm going to ask him a question I was going to ask, and just sort of was friendly a little bit and said, hey, have a good day. We'll talk to you later. But he only put down there guru. He's a guru. You know what a guru, I mean, I'm not here to define guru, but I mean, in my opinion, a guru is somebody like you want to sit at their feet, and bow down a little bit, and say, hey, share with me your massive wisdom here about. So, most people called heroes in our society are not really heroes, they're celebrities. Most people don't know the difference between heroes and celebrities. And I've noticed this, if you're ever looking at a news item, especially if it's a hot button political item, they'll say, actor so-and-so spoke to this issue. And I'm like, it's an actor. He knows how to pretend, he knows how to act like other people, and maybe be really good at it. I really don't care about what his opinion is about this political item, or her opinion. But just because they're well known, people think they know something about everything, or if they speak, everybody else ought to listen. You can be well known and not be a hero. Celebrities make a big splash. Heroes make a big difference, and there's a lot of difference in that. Celebrities are focused on image and fame. Heroes are focused on character and service. Celebrities are focused on sacrifice for self, and many of them, it is admirable that they would sacrifice to accomplish what they've accomplished, either in a sport or in some other way that they've really put themselves through a lot. But oftentimes that's for their career, for their benefit. Heroes often sacrifice for other people. Celebrities, they like for people to serve them. Have you ever heard a celebrity get upset because somebody didn't recognize them in public or didn't acknowledge them in the right way or that kind of thing? Heroes serve other people. They're not looking for people to serve them. They serve other people. I think that's one of the reasons why oftentimes moms hit hero status, because they function kind of in that world. I want to talk to you, give you 3 things that, in my opinion, make somebody a real hero. And these are not comprehensive, but they are very specific and very important. The first one is real heroes are willing to stand alone for what's right. Real heroes are willing to stand alone for what's right. The scripture taken from 2 Samuel talks about 3 of David's men. David had these men who were with him in his army, and it says, these are the 3 most heroic men in David's army: Joshua, Eleazar, the son of Dodo, and Shema. I was going to try to move my way through there, but I didn't quite make it. Here's the deal. Some of you maybe think you have a reason not to accomplish much in life, or to kind of live in Loserville or that kind of thing. You say, well, my dad was a dodo. Or listen, Eleazar's dad was one too, but he was one of David's most heroic men, okay? One of the 3 most heroic men. So don't use your dad as an excuse, all right? Don't do that. And Shema. Once during an attack, when all Shema's men deserted him, he stood alone at the center of a field and beat back the Philistines, and God gave him a great victory. If you think about that for a moment, it's like in a moment whenever the people he counted on deserted him, he stood his ground and he fought back, and he defeated the enemy. He stood alone. I think it's impossible to live our lives, men, and I'm talking specifically men. I think this is true for the teenagers here. It's true for women as well. But it's impossible to live our lives without at some point or another having to stand alone. Being in a situation where we face something alone, and a lot is determined in those moments. Whenever we either choose to stand alone or we choose not to, and just sort of to blend into the crowd. He could have run away with his soldiers. He didn't do that. He stood and faced the enemy. Guys, most of us aren't going to go to a real battle, even though we're near a fort here, and different men have either served or are currently serving in the military. The truth is that you're not going to actually go into a normal war, regular war this week. But you are going to face some ethical battles. You are going to face some moral battles. You are going to face some personal battles, some emotional battles, some relational battles. Each one of us men here will face some of those battles as we go into this week. And the question is, will we stand, and will we be faithful? Will we face into the battle and or run and hide? Exodus 23:2 says, "Do not follow the crowd in doing wrong," and it's important for us to realize that there are some things that we have to gather the courage to stand alone if need be. Peer pressure is a huge thing in our culture, has probably always been, but I think it's particularly big today because there's so much information available. And with social media being what it is, and so I think that there is a lot of pressure to fit in, to go along, and just to not in any way do something that stands out in the crowd or somehow resist what the crowd is doing. And I, the last thing that I think any strong believer ought to do is be a troublemaker. I don't care whether you do something in the name of the Lord or you do it in your own name, but you do something to be a troublemaker. I think that is not good. It's a negative thing. It's not helpful. It damages really people more than helps people. And so I'm not talking about being a negative person, being a difficult person, but I will say this: there are times we face situations where we don't always have to speak up. People are doing something, whatever. It's not always our job to fix them or correct them. It's our job to do what is right. And if we're asked to participate in something that is wrong or something that is unethical, then we have to maybe speak to that at that point and say, I can't stop you from doing what you're doing, but I'm not going to participate in that. And there have been times where people may want you to sign your name to something or do something else that is reflective, that isn't reflective of the truth. And you have to make a decision at that moment. What am I going to do? Am I going to go along just because that's the easy thing to do, or am I going to, take the risk that this person might think I'm being judgmental of them by saying, no, I'd rather not do that because I don't think that is truthful, and I would prefer not to participate in that. It's easy to go along to get along. It's hard to stand alone. The scripture tells us in Romans chapter 12, verse 2, do not model your behavior on the contemporary world, but let the renewing of your minds transform you so that you may discern the will of God and what is good and acceptable and mature. And we often are, it's ask the average person, is it okay to tell a lie? And it'll be interesting, the different answers that you get. I've done this with church kids, my kids included. And sometimes it's not very encouraging, some of the answers that you get, not because they're bad kids, but because they're influenced or affected by the culture. And we are told, we are sold information that is not accurate. It's not from God. It's not from His Word. And so there's a tendency to kind of just like, I will just go along. It's a very negative thing. I notice that it's a very negative thing to be I'm going to use old terminology. They have new words for all this stuff. But to be a tattletale. Now, I'll be honest with you. I'm the first person not to really like a tattletale in the sense of like someone who is always, have you ever had that kid around who's just, they're reporting everything that everybody's doing they think is wrong. It may not be wrong. He didn't do, I've been around a couple of those kind of kids, I do want to take them and have them look in a mirror and say, look, why don't you see this person right here? That's who God gave you to take care of. Now you go ahead and take care of them, and you let me and everybody else take care of everybody else. But there is a difference between that and someone who realizes something's not right here. It might be a brother or a sister. Something is not right here. If you know that your sibling is doing something wrong, you may want to talk to them first, but you don't want to let that go on. You want to talk to your parents. If you know that they've gotten involved with some friends and doing some things, you need to speak to the parents, to your parents, and talk about that. And so it's important, but mostly what I'm talking about today is for us as men to be willing to stand alone for what's right. And I will tell you this, that if your children, and I can promise you, you'll have this happen with you, with your children. There'll be a situation where they'll be with you, and there's going to be a business transaction of some kind take place. And they're going to be aware of what's going on. And you either go ahead and take advantage of that business transaction, or you do the right thing. And whether it be you getting too much change back or something else, or finding something that you could find the owner if you just pursued that briefly. You have to go on some big CIA hunt or something like that. You could figure out who this is and who it belongs to and get it to them. And so kids notice those things. They know whether we cut corners or not. They know whether we do things in an ethical manner or an unethical manner. They know that, and they're aware of that. They may not correct you. They might copy you, and certainly they someday will realize that their father was not somebody that they could truly follow their example. I have 3 brothers, as I think you're well aware of. Do I talk about my brothers sometimes? Yeah, it's like Dunkin' Donuts. You didn't have any idea, did you, Tyler, that I have 3 brothers? And they're all great guys, by the way. They have heart problems, but two of them do. But anyway, so these guys, though, are people that I know very well. I know them inside and out as much as you can somebody else. And I will tell you, one of the things that I respect and admire about them is their character. You know, my brother Steve is not a pastor, and he did go to Bible college, and he did work at a Bible college for about 15 years. And if you've know anything about Bible college salaries, he always had a business on the side because he couldn't live on that salary. But he today is just full-blown a businessman and has a few different businesses that he manages overseas. And one of the things that I have observed in him, I remember when he first started hiring employees, and there was that question. Now, you know, do we give them a 1099? Because this is construction stuff. Do we give them a 1099, and do we do this or do this, the other, whatever? And it had to do with everything from workman's comp issues to taxes to all that kind of thing. And I can remember him, he would talk about it, you know, with me. And I remember him at some point just simply saying, you know, Rod, right now I feel like it sets me back against the competition for me to do everything by the book. But to be honest with you, that's how I sleep best and how I feel right in doing it. And so he has. Now, in those last 25 years or more of him doing that, God has allowed him to grow a pretty significant business. And one of the things that in the business that he does, there are a lot of fly-by-night people in that business. And some of them, it's sheetrock business, is drywall. Now, understand, if you have a hole in your wall, I know nothing about drywall. My brother runs a drywall company. I'm joking on that a little bit, but I still don't want to help you fix your wall. But I'm just being honest. I did enough drywall going through school and college and everything else that I've tried my best to forget it. You know, I even hire people to do drywall for me, so understand it's not something I long to do. But it's a kind of business where you have a lot of people who are skilled, they know, and they don't have license, and they'll do it for half off. And of course, you get the half off product too. But over the years, he's had to deal with that and have people undercut and all those other things. But at the end of the day, today, it's not the end of the day, but today, I would think if you were to ask him, Steve, are you grateful that you made the decision to do things by the book, to do the way it's supposed to be done, to report everything you're supposed to report, and to do it the way you're supposed to do it, and other things, without a doubt. Because you know what happens? I mean, honestly, a lot of those people who try to do it on their own thing end up working for him because they either got in arrear on income taxes, or they got in trouble with this or trouble with that, and so now they're at a stage and age in life where they can't do what he's doing. And as a result, their lives are a little tougher, and so, you know, men, when you do what is right, sometimes the price for doing what is right seems really steep. It seems really high. But what I do believe is it's a price you can live with, not only today, but it's a price you can live with 10 years from now, and 20 years from now, and 30 years from now. And it's something that you can pass on, to your kids as well, and a great heritage of having done things right, done things the right way. And so, be willing to stand alone for what's right, and don't be weird. Sometimes people think, well, that means I have to be against everything. I'm going to stand alone. They're for that. I'm against that. No. There's only a few things you have to do that in, but if you do those few things well, where you're willing to stand alone because of convictions and because of character and because of obedience to God, I can promise you it will make a huge difference, not only in you, but in your children as well. Does it guarantee them following God? No, it doesn't guarantee them following God. But what it does guarantee is that you don't live with some of the regrets you would live with otherwise. Number 2, real heroes make sacrifices for others. Real heroes make sacrifices for others. The key phrase there is for others. Matthew Jesus said, whoever wants to be great must become a servant. And his view of greatness was how well you serve other people. And Hebrews chapter 7, and he tells us he certainly did it by example himself. Jesus brought the sacrifice for the sins of all the people once and for all when he sacrificed himself. And so he laid down his life so that we would have eternal life. And then Jesus also taught that when you give a cup of cold water to one of the least of my followers, you'll surely be rewarded. And so Jesus is saying that whenever you even as something as simple as giving somebody a cup of water. Thanks, Nathan. You're in good company, okay? I'm going to take another drink in case my voice is going bad again. I don't know. You got me a little self-conscious about my voice here this morning, guys. So I'm going to try to drown it out here, all right? Something as simple as a cup of cold water. In his name, Jesus says, is of great value. He values that. You'll be rewarded. And then Proverbs 31 reminds us, speak up for people who cannot speak for themselves. Protect the rights of all who are helpless. Speak for them and protect the rights of the poor and the needy. You know, your children count on you, dads, to be a person who defends them. Now, when I say that, I mean, we live in a time period where, parents sometimes have odd ways, like if a ref, I was at one of Skylar's soccer games, and it wasn't anybody on our team, it was the opposing team, but there was a dad who he was yelling so loudly. I was a little ways away from him. He was yelling so loudly at the different, he knew the team members by name, so he was calling them out, George, kick that ball, but he was doing it the kids on the field could hear him. There's no question about it. He had a big voice. And he was yelling out like that. And then we go, oh, no, don't do that. Well, the kids, if their coaches were telling them what to do, they wouldn't have been able to hear him anyway. This guy was like, he was coaching. He was telling them everything to do. And then anytime the ref would make any call against his team, he'd yell, what are you doing? Where did you learn how to, he just, all this stuff. And it's like, just kind of making the game kind of miserable for everybody. But he was standing back a good little ways. And at one point, one of his coaches, turned around to him and yelled up and said, could we please not have another episode like we had last game? And what I found out was the reason he's standing clear back almost to the parking lot yelling stuff because he'd been kicked out the game before. And so he's back here, yelling from a distance, but he's got this big, powerful voice. I'm like, that's not defending your children. That's what we're called be a very obnoxious parent. That's all that is. And so defending your child is simply protecting them from things that to help steer them in a way that keeps them from straying off of a path. And again, we're talking about your best effort. You can't always do that, but to do the best that you can to protect that child from dangers and difficulties. And then the other is to make sure that if there is a situation where they're being taken advantage of, if there is a situation that you don't just blow it off. It doesn't matter. Just deal with it. Sometimes there are times for us as a parent to get involved. And to make sure that things are okay in a given situation, and so that we do that, so that our kids know that we will speak up for them, but not that we would not, if they come and say, my friend called me a name, it's like, don't go, I read something recently where a mom, she went to confront the kid was telling them at school were saying something to him. She went and confronted him, got so ugly and everything else, they had to come and arrest her. It's like, so you got to, this, I'm not talking about this crazy stuff that we see sometimes going on. I'm talking about that your kids know you have their back. If there's something scary going on, something very troubling going on, that you're not an absentee kind of parent, even though you're present, but you're not going to be involved. Be involved with them. Make sacrifices for them. And again, there's a balance to everything. Sometimes, people make too many sacrifices for their children to where they almost disrupt their entire life trying to serve their child. And all that does is spoil them. and then give them a false view of what adult life is really like. So there's that balance in there. But be willing to sacrifice. Real heroes sacrifice for other people. A real dad is one who realizes that his family isn't there just for his comfort and his hit for him, to go get the paper for him, bring him water, or a cup of coffee or something else. But they're there for his companionship and for him to be engaged in their lives. Number 3, real heroes take risks for God. Real heroes take risks for God. I believe that God made you and me a risk taker. I believe it. Now, I will tell you this, and all you have to do is drive around town with your eyes open, and you realize there are quite a few very hungry attorneys out there looking for you to make a mistake. They're looking for you to hit somebody in the car or do something, or you own a business, for someone to slip and fall at your business, in your restaurant or in your place of business. They're waiting for them. They're sitting there waiting because they want to help people, they want to help themselves and people, but so the billboards everywhere. And and some of these guys, I was in Savannah and I had been in Atlanta somewhere in the last few months, and some of the same guys that have signs here in Augusta, they have them all over the whole state. I'm going to call Jim Foy or whatever. He's a strong arm, He's got a muscle like Drew's. I think his is fake though, Drew. That's what I think. And he's a strong arm. He's a strong arm. Well, he's a strong arm all over the state, man. This guy must be omnipresent. So you call his number, you'll never talk to Mr. Foy. I can promise you that. You talk to Mr. Foy's, whatever. But so, and I'm not saying there's not a time to, have something that's done wrong to you taken care of. But I'm just simply saying, here's what I think these lawyers have done in our culture, though. They are taking everybody's willingness to take a risk out. You just say, well, hey, let's do this kind of event, and it's like, well, could somebody sue us? Everything's about, could somebody sue us for that? I even noticed that in church life, several years ago, this stuff started happening, going, well, would we be liable for that? Or would we be, well, you want to be careful, but man, we can all be so careful. It's like we're walking around in, those, all those jelly wrap or whatever, plastic things that, what are they called? Bubble wrap, thank you. All that bubble wrap. It's like we're all walking around in bubble wrap. Oh, you bumped one of my bubble wraps. I'll call one call and that's all, I'll get you, big boy, and so it's just, we're so conscious, man, that we're going to get sued. We're so careful. I think it's really undermined the risk taker in all of us. But I think there's a sense of foolishness in it, but I believe real heroes take risk. And in particular, I want to focus on taking a risk for God. Could your kids ever say, when your life is done, my dad took a risk for God in this way? And you say, well, how would that look? What would that look like? Well, there's certainly different ways. I want to talk about that in just a moment. Before I do, I don't know, Tom and Brenda, I think, are over next door, aren't they? Are they next door? Then I can talk about them, okay? You guys don't tell them I'm talking about them in here. But before they had children, they went with me and some other people, I don't know, on a youth trip to, this has been a long time ago, because Colby just graduated high school, so it's been a very long time ago. But they went with us on a trip with a group of young people to Six Flags. And the day was kind of winding down. It was getting toward, late afternoon, early evening. And we got to this place where there was this, like, amazingly massive, it seems like to me, it was like, it was one of the biggest, one of those bungee jump kind of things, or rock, shoot you up kind of thing. And we were sitting there and we were talking about it and everything. And one of them said, well, hey, let's do that. And I was like, looking at them, they're serious. I said, you guys going to do that? And they did. They got on it together, Tom and Brenda, and they shot them. They were flying. They were flying everywhere but loose up there. It was, just way like, oh. And I'm like, I'm watching it. I'm going, man, they're crazy. They're crazy. Now, I don't know. I haven't asked them, but I don't know. They got kids and everything now. I don't know if they'd be willing to take that risk today. Maybe. You think they would? You don't know, maybe. Not sure. They're not gonna vote for it, okay, one way or another. But the fact is, they were willing to take what I considered a big risk. But they didn't have any kids yet. So they loved each other. They'd die together. We'll go out here and take this big risk. We'll go to heaven together. I don't know, but I don't know how they're thinking it. But they were willing to take that risk. I just have a feeling they might think a little bit longer about that right now. But see, God made us to be risk takers. And I think we function best when there's some element of risk in our lives going on. And there's some risks that are kind of on the foolish side. Have you ever seen these machines that you put money into and it has a claw? And the claw goes around like this and you drop it down and there's stuffed animals in there and you're trying to get one? I don't know why I can't ever think of these things. This has got to be one of the best money makers in the world. First of all, the toys in there don't look like they're worth 50 cents. That's number one. And so the game is at least 50 cents, maybe $1. The second thing is, how in the world do you expect some loose claw that doesn't really grip, just falls down, it's kind of, to really pick up something and you win it? Now, has anybody ever won one out of that before? Anybody ever won so? Man, you guys, whoa, we got some bad people in here. You guys play that game? That is terrible. No, I'm just, you might as well go gambling in Las Vegas, man. And no, did I ask how many won something from that? Is that what I asked? How you won something from it? Can I see your hands again? Wow. Maybe this is a bad story. I don't know. Now I need to ask, how many of you played this game before? I mean, a little more than I have too. I did it a few times because I was going to show my kids how to do it. You know how that works. Only person in our family can get anything is Hunter, and I don't know. I still don't know what he does. I think he crawls in there and gets it. It's what I think he does. I'm not sure, but yes, Skylar has gotten something before. But so there's this one place we would go to, and Skylar, she always wanted to play that. She'd always talk me out of $1 or $2, or if she had. One day, she had her own money, and she didn't say anything, and I noticed she was gone. In fact, Molly was with her, I think, and Hunter was there, and it came back with a stuffed animal. Now, they had to talk Hunter into, he's the one that got it for him. So then he thought since he got it, even though it was Skylar's money, that it was his because he got it. So that's another whole deal. We had to work that all out. Skylar was getting it for Molly. So Molly's like, that's mine. Anyway, we had this old thing going on, this battle zone happening. But anyway, so one did come out. But I will tell you, I haven't asked her yet. I know it wasn't, even $20 or something like that. But she had an okay amount of money with her. And I think she spent it all. I think she spent it all. You know what I noticed? The last 2 or 3 times we've been back to that area, I even had an extra $1. I thought, well, yeah, she likes playing that game. You want? She goes, no, it's okay. She's not interested in the game anymore. She doesn't want to play it. She's not spending her money. She's not going to spend my money because she realized that's a waste of money. And you walk away a loser more than not. I know we got a lot of winners here, but do I dare ask how much you spent to get that little 50 cent worth? No, I'm not going to ask you. Did someone say it out loud? No, I thought I heard a volunteer going, $150. No, I'll tell you what, those are the most expensive stuffed animals you ever get in your life. I can promise you that. But so sometimes, to me, I look at that, and even though I have at some point been pulled into it and going, here, I'll get you guys that, we walked out without it still, And so there are some things that just are not worth the risk. There's some things that aren't. But I will tell you this, if God gives you a risk to take, don't be hesitant to take it. It could be a risk of a time investment in somebody. Do you know people are messy? Why don't you turn to the person next to you and say, people are really messy. I didn't mean you, but anyway, but people are messy, okay? People are messy. And when you invest in people, you take a risk of being hurt. You take a risk But I want to ask you this question. Would it be that you would live your whole life and you never took the risk of investing in somebody? I'm talking about your time, yourself, investing in somebody. Would it be? Please don't let that be. You know, there's so many different things that people, do, but, if you ever have the opportunity to give something of some value to somebody in need, let your kids be a part of that. There's different ones here in the church at times have given a car to somebody. It's not like a brand new car or some kind of but it's a car that gets people around, it's secure, it's safe. And whenever you let your family see, you go, well, that could be money. That's your money. I mean, that's your car. You can have that. Nobody says you have to give that away. You have to do that. But whenever you do that, what kids see is that you took this kind of like financial risk to say, I'm going to believe God's going to take care of us enough, and he is taking good enough care of us. We're going to do this. We're going to help this person. What about a bag of groceries for somebody, a neighbor, or somebody that's been in the hospital or in need? I'm just throwing out some little things. But I mean, I'm not saying a car is a little thing, but I'm just simply saying some things that, most of us could do at some point in our lives, somewhere along the way. And I'm not talking about doing something stupid. If you can't pay your light bill, don't give your money away. Take care of your needs first. But I think we stop taking risks somewhere along the way because we want to be comfortable. That's one reason. I think we don't want to get hurt. And so we just sort of self-protect, go back in our bubble. What you call it? Bubble wrap. We put ourselves back in that bubble wrap. Let me just read to you a scripture in closing. And I want to make one statement after from 2 Corinthians chapter 11. This is Paul writing this. He says, I've worked harder, been put in jail more often, been whipped times without number, faced death again and again and again. 5 different times I was given 39 lashes. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned with rocks. 3 times I was shipwrecked. Once I drifted in the open sea all night and the whole next day. I've traveled many weary miles and often been in great danger from flooded rivers, from robbers, and from my own people, as well as from others. I've faced grave dangers from mobs in cities, and from death in the deserts, and in stormy seas, and from men who claim to be brothers in Christ but are not. I've lived with weariness and pain and sleepless nights. Often I have been hungry and thirsty and have gone without food. Often I have shivered with cold without enough clothing to keep me warm. Wow. I mean, that's like a bunch of stuff. But let me read one more passage to you to give perspective on why Paul would be willing to do that. He says, why do you think, 1 Corinthians 15, why do you think I keep risking my neck in this dangerous work? I look death in the face practically every day I live. Do you think I'd do this if I wasn't convinced of your resurrection and mine is guaranteed by the resurrected Jesus? Do you think I was just trying to act heroic? Not on your life. It's the resurrection that undergirds what I do and say and the way I live. Wouldn't it be awesome if we were known in our family as a person who is willing to take risks for God? A person not foolish, not stupid, not crazy, but sometimes just willing to, even when you're seated at the dinner table with the family out someplace and maybe a waiter or waitress seems down in the dumps, just simply enough to say to that waiter or waitress, listen, we're going to be praying for our food, over our food here in a minute. Is there anything that's going on in your life that you'd like for us to pray for you about? You don't have to stay here. We'll pray for you. You go, oh, I would never do that. That seems intrusive. Well, what's the worst they could do? They could say, no, things are going great, but thank you anyway. Or, I don't believe in God, so it would be a waste of your time to pray for me. They could say those things. But you know what? Most often, or at least on a consistent basis, will happen. They will tell you something. Sometimes you think your waiter or waitress is just mad at the world and that they are being difficult. Sometimes they have the weight of the world on them. Sometimes they have somebody watching their children that they'd prefer not to have watching their children right now. Sometimes they're not sure if their car is going to get them back and forth to work that day or the next day. Simple things can go a long way to communicating to your family, to your children, that you care about what God cares about. And that's the souls and the lives of people.